Rebooting 3, 2, 1.
Last week, I met up with a friend for coffee, and he actually spent hours passionately talking about astrology and how he applies that to career coaching. Yes, astrology. I don't know if he was trying to impress me with this astrology knowledge, because if that's the case, it clearly worked. Not gonna lie, I've always been skeptical about astrology, especially when someone claims it's statistics. To me, it's more like pseudoscience, if anything. But yeah, it actually worked. Me 1 week ago would not have believed this at all. So of course I didn't show it then, but as soon as I got home, I pulled out my own astrology birth chart and ran it through ChatGPT for a full-on analysis. And guess what? It was awfully accurate. Over the next few days, I found myself in this rabbit hole, digging deeper and deeper into the subject, reading articles, papers, and watching videos. And I have to admit, I was genuinely impressed. At the same time, very confused. Just the way the planets and stars work together and how that translates to different energies influencing different parts of our personalities and our lives, with the orbital periods matching the events of the timeline. It almost felt like an unseen algorithm at work, guiding the universe as if it was a computer simulation. I couldn't help but start to wonder, is it possible that this world that we're in right now is actually a simulation? If so, what exactly is reality, consciousness, knowledge, or meaning of life? Let's talk about the simulation hypothesis today. For this, I've actually spent quite some time reading through books, even diving deep into academic papers to really understand what this is all about. And I think with the help of this tool, it's been a lot easier. So before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor of this video, Afforai, an AI tool designed for researchers and students and anyone who dives deep into books and even academic papers. Afforai searches, summarizes, and translates information from multiple sources to produce accurate and trustworthy research insights. It's not just a research tool, but a platform that streamlines the entire research workflow. From reading and summarizing papers, making notes, extracting, comparing the information, to citing and collaborating. When I do research and look up information, I like to make sure that the information I'm getting is credible and real. And the problem that I have with other AI models like ChatGPT, for example, is that it doesn't give me the source of information. And so it gets quite time consuming sometimes for me to fact check and to look for where it comes from. So I like Afforai because it tells me the exact source of the information it's pulling from for me to make sure that it is credible and for me to revisit the original text a lot easier. And it's also capable of summarizing books too, chapter by chapter or page by page, however you want it. And even if that's in different languages. Pretty cool, isn't it? Sign up today to give it a try, and don't forget to use my code linked below to get a discount. So back to the video. The simulation hypothesis is a philosophical and scientific proposal that suggests our reality, including everything we perceive and experience, could be a simulated environment created by a more advanced civilization or entity that is very much like the Matrix. The idea actually had deep roots in Western and Eastern philosophy, from Plato's allegory of the cave and Jojon's butterfly's ring. And more recently, in 2003, Bostrom, a Swedish philosopher at the University of Oxford, published a seminal paper titled "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?", where he explored the idea that our reality might be a computer simulation created by a highly advanced civilization. The argument is based on logical reasoning and probabilistic framework rather than empirical evidence, which is also referred to as the simulation hypothesis. And eventually this work became the foundation of widespread discussions about the simulation hypothesis in both academic and popular contexts. So the basic idea is, if there are other civilizations in our galaxy, there are three possibilities, and at least one of them must be true. The first one is civilization never gets to that point, or almost all civilizations go extinct before developing the ability to simulate reality, which many technologists doubt. And in fact, we're not too far from it now, actually. And second being, civilizations gets there, but they choose not to run any simulations. And third being, we are most likely in a simulation. In this case, the civilizations get there, and they have the skills and technologies to build simulations, and they create many of these simulations. So we can have millions of simulated universe and billions of beings. And so if we consider just based on the probability, most of the chances are we're most likely in a simulation. Pretty interesting, right? Now, while Bostrom asked the why, you may wonder, is there anything more grounded in evidence to support the simulation hypothesis? Well, yes. In 2019, the MIT computer scientist, also a game developer called Rizwan Virk, expanded on this idea further in his book, The Simulation Hypothesis, where he talks about the how could we theoretically and practically speaking, realistically speaking, build a simulation so immersive that the people in it are unable to tell that it isn't reality. So Virk, working at the Silicon Valley, one time he put on a VR headset and started to play a VR ping pong game. And the game was so realistic. As he was playing, he forgot he was in a game, so much that at the end of the game he tried to put down the paddle and lean against the table. But there was no table. The controller fell on the floor and he almost tripped over too. And that got Virk, as a game developer, to start thinking, how long would it take for a human to really build something like The Matrix? Something that is so immersive that you forget that you're inside of a video game. That's how Virk came up with the concept of the simulation point and the 10 stages throughout that evolution journey. And as you can see, we're not too far off from it now, especially with the rapid rise of AI. And so perhaps not too long after, at some point, we will be able to create virtual worlds that are basically indistinguishable from the real world, like those that are depicted in The Matrix. And so if we are so close to getting there, what about civilizations that are 1,000 years ahead of us, or maybe not even 200 years ahead of us?
So given that we're clearly on a trajectory to have games that are indistinguishable from reality, and those games could be played on any set-top box or on a PC or whatever, and there would probably be, billions of such, computers or set-top boxes, it would seem to follow that the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
And here's a summary of the main points from his book. First is that reality could just be an illusion built on information. What does that mean? This is where it starts to get a little bit complicated, but let me try. Well, so let's say we've all seen a tree. When you look at a tree, you see the tree as a whole, but what if you look closer? What if you zoom in on the tree? What do you see? You probably see tree bark. And what if you zoom in closer? You probably see the fibers. And what if we keep zooming all the way in? Now what do you see? What do you think the smallest pieces of everything is? Actually, the world that we see and touch, which to us is solid and physical, are not actually the way it seems. When scientists look at the smallest things in the universe, they found atoms and particles, and precisely it's their interactions create the physical world we experience. And this discovery was so mind-blowing because it challenged the classical understanding we have of the universe. Turned out there are no solid physical stuff, matter at the tiniest scale, but rather they're more like particles, electrons. So with that, Virk suggests that this is very similar to computer games. When you zoom all the way into your character, you end up seeing a bunch of pixels. And it looks real, but essentially it's just lines of computer codes. Not only that, these particles, they move around and behave like clouds of probability, meaning that they don't have a definite position since you're moving around, right? Until we look at them, until they're observed and measured. This is where Schrödinger's infamous cat could help explain this idea. According to quantum physics, until you open the box, the cat could be both alive and dead. Until you measure it, until you observe it, sort of acts like a computer game waiting to load or render. And the rest of the world might not actually exist until you interact with them. And one of the big reasons is to save computing power. Okay, I'll show you an experiment. It's called the double slit experiment. It's really crazy, and until this day, we haven't figured out why.
When a laser emits beams of light particles called photons at a screen with two slits, you'd expect to see two strips to correspond with the two slits. Instead, we see a pattern of light and dark bands. This suggests that light behaves like waves that pass through both slits simultaneously, interfering with each other to create the pattern on the second screen. However, when scientists used a measuring device to observe the slit that each photon passed through, the interference pattern disappeared and two strips appeared. The act of observing which slit it went through changed the behavior of the photons. No one knows why observing a particle causes its behavior to change.
So he proposed that the physical universe is actually not physical at all, or whether it's built from something more abstract like information, probabilities, or data. And apart from that, there are also other clues such as our world could be simulated. One is religion. Virk says that after studying many different religions, he realized that there are many religions that kind of share the same idea, such as Maya and even Christianity, suggesting that this world that we're in right now is not the real world. Rather, there's something more real beyond what we see. And it also seems like the universe operates on mathematical principles, from the Fibonacci sequence in nature to the equation governing physics. And programming mathematical rules are the basics of virtual worlds, suggesting that our universe could be the same. Or just like computer games having glitches from time to time, we also have these unexplainable phenomena like deja vu or UFOs or aliens. But ultimately, after all this, both Bostrom and Virk suggest that the whole point of asking these questions is to evoke deeper thinking about our place in the universe, how we define meaning, and how we navigate the unknown. It's not just a speculative thought experiment, it's a lens to reevaluate our realities and ourselves. How would you live a life if the world is or isn't simulated? For me, the more I ponder this question, the less it matters whether we are in a simulation or not. I really like how the quantum mechanics put this. They say the reality is what you make it. Perhaps if life is a simulation, it doesn't make the emotions, the relationship, or the choices any less real to us. The joy we feel, the challenges we face, the connections we make, those are real. And if we're not in a simulation, then the fact that we have this one life to experience and shape into something meaningful, makes every moment more precious, I guess. So I think the real takeaway here is that we can use these ideas to help us question our purpose and define meaning for ourselves. Whether or not we live in a simulation, the truth is we have the power to create the world we want to live in. We have the power to create reality. And the meaning we seek is something we built from within. It's in our relationship, the actions we take, and the attitude and beliefs we hold as we navigate the unknown. And the unknown will always be with us, whether we're in a simulation or not. In the end, it's not about having all the answers. It's about